You are live with Get Connected. Mike Agerbo here in studio. I've got fellow nerds, AJ Vickery and John Beeler. Thanks for coming in.
Hello.
So we've got a cool show today. So much to talk about. We will be doing a little bit of back-to-school tech. There's lots of folks, students, high school students, elementary school, university students.
Mature students
that need technology. They need laptops. We'll be telling you all the great gear that you should be thinking of. We'll also be talking about Facebook. When are we not talking about Facebook? Well, Facebook is hiring journalists again to help curate/write news. We're not really quite sure, but we have Shruti Shakar from mobilesyrup.com to help investigate what is happening there. Obviously, they're still trying to dig their way out of the bad PR hole. And we're also going to be talking about email. As many people know, especially if you had Telus email, there was an outage this month for several days, many more. And we'll talk about why that might have happened and what you could do to keep in communication if your email service goes down for an extended period of time. Let's talk about some of the news out there, guys. This was an interesting one. Amazon, according to a Wall Street Journal report, is reportedly listing thousands of unsafe or banned products. And so this is interesting because many people think when you go to Amazon.com or Amazon.ca, it's just Amazon selling all this stuff.
Yep.
But it's not. They sell a good chunk of it, but they have what's called the marketplace. And so when you search for a new pair of Beats headphones, for example, it will list many different sellers. They can sign up to be a seller on Amazon Marketplace. And so there are literally, from what the Wall Street Journal was saying, over 4,000 banned or unsafe products.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that should be that surprising to the listeners. Do you know, when you really think about it? Because there's, as you say, Mike, like to become an Amazon seller, the hurdles that are in place there. I mean, there's a different level if you actually get subscribed to Prime, and there's like a few different levels of sort of how you exist on Amazon.
Yeah.
But you know, there's an opportunity to get online with products that might not have the same scrutiny. I mean, I don't think you can buy like organs on Amazon.
Not yet. No, they take those off. But so let's look at some of the list here. There's a lot of FDA-approved products that weren't approved by the FDA. A lot of items lacking child safety warnings. There were some banned sleeping wedges for babies, illegally imported prescription drugs, electronics that falsely claim UL-certified safety ratings, toys with unsafe amounts of lead or potential choking hazards, and the list goes on.
It's also really difficult to tell where the source description came from sometimes, because it's a cut and paste job at a lot of times for some of these, let's say, off-market products. You know, whenever you're looking for a brand name product, all the recommendeds below are usually the ones that are kind of like on the sketchier side or are a lot cheaper, and they're cheaper for a reason because they're being imported.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously very concerning. So buyer beware when you're buying anything off any e-commerce site. But at the same time, I kind of feel for Amazon because they literally would have millions of items in their catalog, up on their website. Like, how do you?
Yeah, and like you said,
all of that.
Like you said at the beginning, though, too. Also, everyone blames Amazon, but they're really just the facility that's making this all possible.
Exactly.
Right, and all of these third-party sellers that are selling this stuff, they bought pallets of these products. They got to get rid of them. That's how they're going to do that, and it's really difficult to even tell as a Prime owner, a Prime member, whether it's sold or shipped by Amazon or not.
Yeah.
Because the wording is a little different depending on who's fulfilling the delivery, as well as who's actually selling it.
Well, what I liked was Amazon's response, quoted to say, "We invest significant resources to protect our customers and have built robust programs that are designed to ensure products offered for sale in our store are safe and compliant."
Well, sure.
That's
but again, when you were dealing with millions of products on the site, it's like going to the shopping mall and say, for example, the Gap had hoodies where the strings could strangle you, right? That's like, do you blame the shopping mall for that? No. So this is kind of a similar case that you can't always blame Amazon specifically for that.
Right. And just vetting all of these sellers and these products, and even the descriptions and purported claims of these products is really difficult.
Well, think about just the sheer magnitude of Amazon and how big it is. You got to figure, like, by the time you start applying, these small percentages of issues that occur, they become exponential.
Let's move on to the next story. This was interesting. A NASA astronaut up on the International Space Station has been accused of breaking into an ex-spouse's bank account while she was on the International Space Station.
Yeah.
She broke the law in space.
Which law?
Yeah, that's a good
Which
question.
jurisdiction?
Yeah.
Well, okay, so that's interesting. I'm thinking, like, what law applies up there? Apparently, it depends on what country you're from. So if you're from Canada, Canadian law applies. If you're from Russia, Russian law applies. So she broke U.S. law, essentially. I mean, she's denying the allegations. We don't know all the details on here, but it was kind of an interesting thing.
Well, it's the first time a crime has been committed in space.
That we
Yes,
know of.
That we know of.
Well, sorry. Right.
But can you imagine being up on the International Space Station for months? You must have a bit of time on your hands. Like,
And good internet access, apparently.
and fantastic internet access to be able to do online banking.
No kidding.
You just don't, like, when I think of astronauts up in the space station, I don't think of them sitting there, like, shopping on Amazon or
Yeah.
Are they downloading movies?
yeah, looking at cat videos.
But
Do you know what I
after
mean?
a certain time, maybe you just get tired of floating. But speaking of space, like, did you guys happen to see the Star Hopper's first test flight? That SpaceX's sort of like people mover.
Yes.
Yeah. So explain this, AJ.
Well, essentially, it's a vessel that's
Spaceship
that's meant to move people from planet to planet. So
Okay.
from Earth to the moon, for example.
Yes.
Or between Mars and the moon and whatnot. But yeah, so it's a single engine spaceship.
Yeah.
Kind of looks like a giant R2D2.
Yes.
Well,
or like a rocket from like the 50s.
I have a friend that actually works at SpaceX, and
Okay.
he referred to it on Facebook as that time we launched a water tower into space, because it's this big bulbousy kind of thing, right?
Yeah. How do they get that in space? That thing's huge.
It's
It looks
huge.
like a giant water tower.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fuel getting that thing up there.
Yes.
But it didn't crash.
No?
No.
Yeah.
But you got to check the video. Google it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's called the Space Hopper.
Yeah.
SpaceX. It's fascinating just watching this thing kind of bounce around.
Yeah.
Well, in the test flight, they actually had it tethered, and they flew it up 500 feet, and I mean that's a long leash.
Yeah. Yeah. Who
With
makes
a
that
giant
leash?
fire engine
makes-
coming out
yeah,
the bottom.
Yeah. Who makes that cord?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how does that not get burned to a crisp?
And why isn't everything we own made out of that stuff?
Yeah.
right? That's a good point.
Yeah.
We have a lot to talk about on today's program. Later on, we will be chatting with Shruti Shakar about Facebook. They're in the news again, talking about news. Back a few years ago, they actually had journalists going through the different news feeds through Facebook to make sure everything was copacetic. But they got rid of them all because computer algorithms could do that a lot cheaper.
Sure.
Then we got Cambridge Analytica and all that crap happened, and the 2016 election with all the Russian interference with fake news. They're bringing journalists back.
Woohoo! Robots out.
Robots out, journalists back. I don't think there's a lot of journalists, just I believe in the US and the UK to start, but we're going to find out what's happening there and what purpose they serve. We're not really quite sure. We'll be talking about email. If you were one of the poor folks that had a Telus email account, we feel your pain. You were down for a few days. We'll talk about what you could do perhaps in the future to mitigate some of that pain. You're listening to Get Connected here on the Chorus Radio Network. Back after this. You are back with Get Connected. Mike Agerbo here in studio. I've got John Beeler with me today. We're going to talk back to school some more because it is back to school time and parents are still out there and students alike trying to find the best gear. On the line, we have our good friend Erin Lawrence. She's from techgadgetscanada.com. Did I get that right, Erin?
You got it exactly right, Mike. Thanks.
For once. I wanted to bring you on the show because you've actually put together a list of, gear to get for back to school. And maybe we'll just start off with, where do you put all the gear first?
Yes, I am a big advocate for a good, comfortable, well-made backpack. I've carried all the pretty bags. I've carried the handle bags. They're not the same. You want a really good backpack, especially for kids that are going to be carrying a lot of stuff to school. So my two top picks for backpacks are, one is from a company called STM Goods, and they've got a really cool backpack called the Myth. Tons of pockets, lined pockets, places for everything that you need for all your back to school gear. And it looks really cool too. It's kind of more of a light whitish, grayish with a little bit of cranberry in there. So it's not your average tech backpack. The other one is from Targus Canada. It's called the Mobile VIP backpack. And same idea. It's got a slot for your laptop. It's got a slot for your tablet. Got place for your sunglasses and your headphones and all your cords and cables. So I think if you can keep everything organized and keep it safe, all of the tech gear that we're going to recommend here is going to last you that much longer.
What kind of pricing ballpark are we looking at here?
Well, it depends on the backpacks. Some of these sort of more well-made ones, like I'm advocating for, can cost, $100, a little over $100. Yeah, you can get backpacks for $20 at Target and Walmart and wherever else, but those are the ones I think you end up replacing every year.
Plus, you don't want to put a $1,000 laptop in a $20 bag.
No, absolutely not.
For a number of different reasons. Okay, what about tablets or laptops? What are you thinking?
I like for students, especially for college or university students, I think tablets are really great because students tend to be on the bus, they're on the go, they're walking. You want something that's a little bit lighter. And as much as I love my laptop, and I have two of them sitting in front of me right now, when I'm going somewhere, when I'm traveling, when I have to be on the go all day long, I will usually bring a tablet. The one I pick, because I live in the Apple world, I've got the Apple iPad Pro or the Apple iPad Air. So much lighter than a laptop, much more portable. And honestly, tablets these days can do pretty much almost anything a laptop can do.
Well, I guess the big thing with the iPad Pro, and I believe the Air as well, is they've got the magnetic smart connector as well. So when you pair that up with one of the Apple keyboards, it's just a magnetic attachment, and you've basically got a laptop but thinner and lighter.
Exactly. You can use it as a tablet. You can use it to type if you want that physical keyboard. You don't have to worry about charging it up. It's super convenient. What
about the pencil? Do you find a lot of people use that?
I don't use it as much as I thought I would. It tends to be for those people who I would say are in maybe the more artsy pursuits, if we're talking about heading back to school. The pencil is great for drawing. It's great for sort of fine detail work. It's probably a little more than you need for something like surfing the internet or, monitoring your social media feeds. But if you do have that artsy pursuit, maybe you're in architecture or design, using something like the Apple Pencil on that tablet is going to give you a lot more control over what you're doing.
Let's move on to, I guess, a big one, headphones. That's an important a device for any student or person, really.
I think it is. And that's because the way I tend to use headphones, especially when I'm working, is I use them to block out outside noise. Honestly, for me, they're less about the music or the podcasts and more just about letting me focus on what I'm doing. So I really like to recommend headphones when students are trying to study. You can put on something kind of low and ambient in the background, and it just helps you really block out those outside distractions and focus on your studies or whatever else you need to do.
What are you recommending?
I like the Beats. The Solo 3 wireless are kind of an on-ear pair that you can, wear on your head, and they're obviously bigger and a little more bulky, though they do fold up. The other one, again, because I'm in that Apple world, I really like my AirPods and the new AirPods 2. Little longer battery life, seamless connectivity. I mean, as soon as you open the case, you pop them out, put them in your ears, everything's connected and ready to go. So if I'm traveling or moving around, I don't have to worry about fussing with connections. So those are probably two of my top picks.
Very, very cool. So let's move down. We're talking about back to school tech with Erin Lawrence from techgadgetscanada.com. Charging. All these things need to be charged. What do you recommend?
Yes, I think it's a great idea to have one of those Qi wireless charging pads or charging mats on your desk at home or wherever your workspace is. And that just lets you put your phone down, your headphones, your AirPods too, if you want, to get that wireless charge while you're sitting there working. You don't have to go looking for your cords and your plugs. It just makes things easy. Another important option, especially if you spend, all day at school maybe or at college or university, and then you go out to a part-time job afterwards, afterwards, you need that battery power on the go. The charging mat's not going to work for you. So getting a really good battery case that's going to give you an additional charge or two will just go so much further to helping you get that all-day battery life out of the phone, because for many of us, that's really hard to do.
Well, there's a lot out there in the market. I know Mophie makes a lot of great ones. Any good ones you've come across?
Yeah, Apple makes one as well, and Mophie does make a really good one. I tried one of those a couple years ago, and it was really nice. It's very slim and sleek and streamlined, but there are several options out there. If you pop into any of the local stores, you can pick out any number of battery cases that'll go well with whatever phone you're using.
Let's talk about keeping track of all these very expensive gadgets, iPad Pros, laptops, you name it. There's a lot of Bluetooth trackers in the market now.
Mm-hmm. Tile is sort of the granddaddy, if I can call them that. I don't know if they'll like that, of the tracker market, but they've got a whole bunch of different options for trackers. They sort of have little trackers that have keychain loops and rings on them that you can attach them to, obviously, your keys or anything else. You can put a little elastic around it and attach it to your water bottle. They've also got super flat ones that you can slip into to your tablet case, into your wallet. You can even put a little adhesive two-sided tape on it and put it on the back of your laptop or your tablet. And then if something goes missing, it will give you this little ring. And it's basically just going to make this sound wherever you've left it in the house.
In the couch.
Until you find it.
Always in the couch. But they've actually got a community going as well. If you lose your gadget out in the wild, other Tile members could potentially help you find them.
That's right, and that's how a lot of people have found lost wallets. You leave it on the bus, and it'll use other Tile members that are running the app on their phones to sort of crowdsource wherever your lost item is if you're outside your home.
Talking with Erin Lawrence from TechGadgetsCanada.com. I want to thank you for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me, gentlemen.
We have so much more to talk about on today's program. A little later, we will be talking with Shruti Shakar about some cool tech issues. The big one being the whole Facebook journalists, bringing them back on board to actually help with the news feeds. I think they tried to use robots, and that
didn't work out. Does it ever work out for anybody?
Worked really badly. We will also be chatting about Audible, the audiobooks company. Amazon's bringing a new feature that's pissing off all the book publishers.
It's the robots.
It's something about artificial intelligence. We'll give you the lowdown on that. Plus, we will be talking about the whole Telus outage for emails. What happened and what you can do to protect yourself in the future. You're listening to Get Connected here on the Chorus Radio Network. Back after this. You are back with Get Connected. Mike Agerbo here. I've got my good tech nerd friends, AJ Vickery, John Beeler. Want to talk about email. Telus had an unfortunate email outage a little while ago. Went down for many people for 4 or 5 days, and then it took a little while longer to get the backups of older emails as well, like your history of emails. And for some, it went on longer. They weren't able to access their email for as much as 11 days. And so this made news. And
it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, a big reason is like if your cell phone didn't work for 4 or 5 days, or 10 days.
What was surprising, though, is how many people have their business on their internet provider's email account.
Yeah.
I mean,
because that was the big thing. For consumers, yes, that's a hardship, but you could kind of get around it. It's not going to be life or death for most people. I know there are certain situations where it was an issue. But for businesses that are relying on email, money transfers, and just getting orders in or being able to communicate with their clients, and the client's not even realizing that when they're sending this email to a business, the business isn't even getting it.
Yeah.
Right? So I feel for them, but like what do you do in that particular case?
Well, if you're a business, you should probably think about having a backup plan for emails. I mean, these kinds of things can be...
Sorry, keep going.
These kinds of things can be really expensive because you have to basically duplicate your setups in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
But at least having a plan B for this eventuality, which will affect everybody at some point.
Yeah.
No one expected it to take 11 days, like in Telus's case.
Yeah.
So having a backup, Gmail or somewhere else that you can at least still get communications out in and out of, which is probably what a lot of people had to do, is they were forced to spin up an extra email account somewhere else, just to stay in touch. But then also being able to access things like your address book and knowing who you need to be contacting and what, without knowing what you're missing until Telus got their stuff back together.
I know one thing I do on my Outlook, and I use obviously email for business and that. I make sure that I have a copy of every email that ever comes in. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, it takes up a bit of space now. My Outlook file is huge.
Yeah.
But I just like having that peace of mind knowing that I've always got a copy, like a local copy of every email that I've ever done. A lot of these new email services will only keep like the last 3 months of email, but then it'll search, into its, backup of your email,
which could take a little time.
Takes a few extra seconds or whatever. So that's what happened in this case. All of that history disappeared as well. I mean, they were able to restore it. They had backups of it, but it took a bit of time.
Just really shows you how much we're reliant on things like this. And I don't know how many times we've heard, emails going away because we're going to use some other kind of messaging system or Slack or something like that that'll replace that. But more often than not, we just keep going back to email.
The world runs on email, especially if you're business. But okay, so you're a business, you've got your email address up on your website. And this happens to all the email services. Unfortunately for Telus, it took a while longer, but Gmail's gone down for hours, if not a day. So what do you do as a business?
Well, I think that even to your point, John, like having a backup in place, it's kind of tricky to have a backup to the email. Do you know what I mean? Because, what would that be? What would that look like?
Yeah. But I think in the case of a business, it would depend on the type of business you're offering.
Yeah.
So if you're doing support and things like that, or if it's literally just sending invoices, that can be worked around. But if you're expecting to be able to be in touch with your clients and customers, it's still good to have a backup plan. In theory, you could go up to your website and update your contact email if you had to, if it was an extended outage.
That's a good point. Yeah. Like just as fast as possible, put up like your Gmail address or backup address that you have as well.
But it also kind of highlights the point that a lot of people make the mistake of putting all their eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
Because it's easy, right? It's really easy to go to Google, Telus, Shaw, whomever, and say, hey, I need a website, I need email, all this stuff in one place. But if that one place goes down, you may not even be able to go into your website to update that.
Yeah, but if you're stringing that all across a whole bunch of different service providers, that's a pain in the butt.
Yeah, it is a huge.
Yeah. But I think this probably affected small businesses much more so.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? Like, because they're probably more reliant on that single mode of communication. Like a larger business would have different ways of getting a hold of them.
That's right.
Essentially. Yeah. So I guess number one, if there is an outage, be able to get up to your website right away to change the email address. But the problem is your customers already have your email address. That would only work for new customers.
Right. And they would have to be customers that would be aware of the fact that Telus, for example, was having an outage.
Yeah.
So they would not even think...
Because these emails weren't bouncing back.
No.
Because usually if there's a problem with somebody's server, you'll get a bounce back message saying this message couldn't reach AJ, for example.
Right. So they thought that AJ was just ignoring them.
Yeah.
So...
He ignores my emails.
Never do that. Sorry, just last point, but really they... I've talked to a few technologists that really say, like, if email didn't exist today, it probably wouldn't be the platform we'd use for communication tomorrow. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
With all these different ways of communicating now via text and chat and Slacks and whatnot.
Yeah.
So have backup. If you're a small business, have backup communication, some type of chat address, whether that's like a Facebook Messenger account or what have you, or WhatsApp. It's a backup way for your customers to get a hold of you. But I always tell people, go with email providers
Yeah.
And so unfortunately, there's going to be these down points. And so Telus is probably the best place to go now, because this probably won't happen again for a long time, because there's probably a few IT guys lost their heads. Okay, we're going to have to take a break. When we come back from the break, we have still a lot more to talk about on today's program. We'll be chatting with Shruti Shakar. Yes, about Facebook again. They're hiring journalists once more. They got rid of them, replaced them with robots. they're bringing humans back. We'll find out why. You're listening to Get Connected here on the Chorus Radio Network. Back after this. Here we go. You are back with Get Connected. Mike Agerbo here in studio. We've got John Beeler with me today. Let's talk about Facebook, and why not? They're always doing something bad lately. But they, in fairness, they are trying to be better. And
They're being forced to be better.
They're being forced to be better. And the latest news is that they are actually hiring journalists again. If you remember back a couple of years ago, they did away with most of their journalists, and I guess used algorithms to decide what was good. Robots. Yes. To decide what was good human news and what was bad. I guess depending on who you ask, that was good or bad.
We got a new president down south.
Exactly. On the line, we've got our good friend Shruti Shakar from mobilesyrup.com. I can't talk today, Shruti. Shruti, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
I wanted to bring you on because you cover this type of news. So from my understanding, Facebook is actually hiring journalists again for a new news tab or feature. Is that correct?
Yeah, so essentially it's they're going to be hiring about 10 veteran journalists, and this group of journalists are essentially going to be curating stories for an upcoming, quote, news tab on its mobile app. And that's essentially, I guess, like a section that would have curated news for people, and it could be about anything, really. And I think the part of the reason for doing that is just to combat the whole idea and issue behind misinformation. I mean, I don't know how necessarily successful that will be because, as you mentioned, they did get rid of their, I think it was called trending news at the time or something like that, where they would sort of just have this algorithmically placed news articles that would come at you. But I think this is going to be different than that. Like, I think people are going to be actually like handpicking the news articles that would go to the user.
You think they're being forced to do this to sway public opinion? Do they feel like this is a great idea? This time it'll be better. Well, we promise.
It could be better. I think, there's obviously definitely a lot of concern still with Facebook and the whole Cambridge Analytica and the fact that we're having our own elections coming up in October. I think there's definitely a lot of crackdown on Facebook because, for so long we've sort of only seen the good side of Facebook and social media and how they've helped people mark themselves safe when they're in an earthquake or, a lot of like the Arab Spring took place over Facebook and, people were finding revolutions taking place. And now that sort of has shifted, and particularly because of the 2016 election in the U.S., there's a lot of extremism on Facebook, a lot of bad actors that are coming up on Facebook. And so I think there is a lot of bad, and then there's also a lot of good. And I think Facebook is just trying to become a better platform and be a more legitimate source. I mean, I don't really use Facebook anymore, so I don't know how successful this is going to be. I don't know.
Well, it's interesting. You're a little younger than I am, from my understanding. I actually use it a lot, and I'm actually using it a lot for news now. I kind of like certain radio shows and news organizations, and that works for me.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point to make as well. Not to say that you're old or anything, but
he is.
Thanks, Shruti. Thanks, John.
A lot of older folks actually use Facebook, and actually for that very purpose, for looking at news. And I think that's also a big concern that people who are in parties like the Liberal Party of Canada or like any election party, I think they're one of their aspects is targeting older people who use Facebook platforms because they're essentially the ones that are reading this type of news, and there can be a lot of misinformation behind the news that they get. And so a lot of older folks might not necessarily know how to differentiate between what's real and what's fake. And I'm not necessarily saying that the curated stories are going to be combating that, but I think this is another way of sort of bringing in real news or news that's not fake news or misinformation. I think Facebook is trying to curate this type of content that's real news and applicable to people who use Facebook as a tool for their news.
I'm wondering, though, if they're going to run into these same issues with liberals and conservatives. One of the criticisms of conservatives down in the U.S. is that social media sites like Facebook, they feel were skewed towards more liberal views and that their voice or voices weren't being heard. I could kind of see this playing out again with whatever journalists they're picking, can't you?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. They haven't necessarily said who these journalists are going to be. All they've said is that they're going to be veteran journalists. So obviously people who have, I would say, at least more than 5 years of experience. Again, that number is not mentioned or anything. And most of the journalists are actually going to be placed or based in the US, and there's going to be one based in the UK. So I definitely think that's kind of interesting to see, like, will they be focusing on US news, like curated US news, or will it be world news, or will they have someone that focuses on Canada, someone who focuses on Asia and Southeast Asia? Like, how are they going to curate this news, I guess, is kind of an interesting question that I would...
Cat videos?
But yeah, I mean, it's very possible that if they don't pick the right people, there could be some skewing of content, but the hope is that they don't do that.
I said it as a joke by having those journalists focus on more of the
lighter stuff
as opposed to
Ariana Grande and cat videos.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, at least it takes some pressure off them to be this polarizing point for the politics.
Yeah.
Right. And get some people get in there with some really interesting stories about people, not about politics, not about sports or other things that can also be very polarizing on Facebook.
I wonder how much commitment Facebook has to this, because humans are expensive. Like, these journalists cost a lot of money. The computer algorithms are way, way cheaper. Yeah. So, how far will they expand this? And are they just doing it because they know they have an image issue?
I think the other interesting question that we should also be asking is, will they be writing the story or will they just be curating it? I mean, obviously, it's suggesting is that they're going to be handpicking the stories. So
are they trying to be a news outlet then?
Like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
These are questions that I would like answered, but because this is a very, I guess, very early news, early days type of report coming out of the New York Times, I think that's why it's still a little bit unknown. But these are some of the questions that I would be asking, about what this would be.
We're talking with our good friend Shruti Shakar from mobilesyrup.com. Got it right this time. I want to thank you for joining us on the program.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Check her out on mobilesyrup.com. She writes fantastic articles about the mobile and tech industry. You are back with Get Connected. We're near the end of the program, but there's one more thing. We always talk about it. If you've got an Amazon Echo speaker or something that can do Amazon Alexa voice commands, this is your skill of the week. And John, what do we got?
Puppy jams.
Puppy jams.
I like the sound of this one.
Yeah, do you? Okay. What happens here?
So it's an iHeartRadio skill that plays music for your dog when you're away. Any Amazon connected device, you can say, Alexa, open Puppy Jams, and then you can tell Alexa how your dog is feeling, stressed, lonely, or happy. Based on your dog's mood, Puppy Jams will play a playlist that's proven by research to have a desired effect on dogs. For example, classical music will help increase sleep time for dogs, while reggae and soft rock will help decrease stress. So,
do they have different puppy jams? Like, are you going to have classical music and soft rock going? Does it really matter? It's a playlist. Do you play music? Oh, you don't have pets.
Yeah, I got more pets than all you guys. Right?
Yeah,
at this
that's
point.
true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah. So I'll tell you what I do.
Okay.
So I have, we have recently got a budgie.
Yeah.
And budgies are gregarious. They like action. They like to be around people. So during the day, there's no one home.
Yeah.
So I ask my, so I'll be sitting here at work and I realize, oh man, I forgot to turn the radio on. So I tell Google from my desk to start playing CBC radio or, CKNW to my bird while I'm out of the office. And I'm telling you, the bird starts chirping away, happy as could be.
Little Steve Miller Band, Gonna fly like an eagle.
So I think Puppy Jams is great. I just need Birdie Jam.
Yeah, well,
Birdie Jam.
see, maybe there's a crossover there.
No, but it's interesting because when we go out and if we leave the dogs home, we like to leave some music going for them to be occupied. I always wonder, like, Are they thinking, God, I wish they wouldn't put this crap on, or
Somebody
this
change
is
the channel.
great, or where are these humans?
My cat seems to like classical music when I leave.
Really?
Yeah.
Good to know. Puppy Jams, scale available for Amazon Alexa. Don't forget to visit our website, getconnectedmedia.com. We've got the weekly podcast of the show, and we've got the video podcast. You can see how handsome we are in video. We put a soft blur on it, so we look fantastic. Right. That's all the time we have left. I want to thank AJ and John for joining me on the program today. We'll see you again next time.